Hello, my friends. I am John Hill. I am going to be doing the next session on how to navigate relational capital to create opportunity. I've had a very interesting journey from a career perspective. So I cut my teeth in career services at Michigan State University, did some unique things around relationships in the state of Michigan, got recruited to LinkedIn, became their lead product walkthrough specialist, gave presentations all over the world as part of that. 10 years ago, I joined a early seed stage tech accelerator called Techstars. And I did a talk in every one of our programs called Power the Network. So helping entrepreneurs, innovators navigate relational capital for funding, talent, customer acquisition, knowledge share, mentorship. Essentially satiating their primary needs through people. And so I'm going to train all of you on how to utilize LinkedIn. This is going to be different than every other session that you've been to because it's going to be interactive. I need your input to actually make this work. I change this presentation every time I give it. So your insights lead me on where to go. I have, in the state, spoken at Raleigh last year before. I've spoken at Purdue Innovates, at IU. Actually, the largest speaking engagement I ever did here, I used to be the MC for Michigan State University Athletics for football and basketball. So in 2010, Michigan State played in the Final Four in Indianapolis, and I was at the pep rally as MC speaking in front of 10,000 Spartans. So Indy's got a very cool piece of my heart. I'm a big believer in 3 principles, and I'll reinforce this as I go through this presentation. 1, build a network before you need it, so it's there when you do. I actually learned that lesson because of the work that I did in the state of Michigan. In 2009, the automotive industry literally drove off the cliff. I was helping people in the state find jobs and opportunities, and very quickly realized that most people who were in automotive losing their jobs at that time had only built relationships within that category. They had only built resumes or CVs associated with automotive. And so when they had to find jobs somewhere else, they hadn't built the network that could help them get there yet. So I'm going to do that for you, showcase how you can do that effectively. Big believer in building a quality relational network, not a quantity relational network. So while I was at LinkedIn, my office was right across from Reid Hoffman's office, the guy who invented LinkedIn. And he was writing a book at the time called The Startup of You. It's a great book, gives you an idea of kind of how to navigate your own career. But what he was able to showcase were there are primary affiliations that are more effective at helping you get to opportunity. And I'll actually give you some of the insight that we did at LinkedIn that'll help you navigate relationships effectively. But the last one, and this is the most important one to me, I've made it a career of helping other people, whether it's in career services, or working with universities and students, or working with early seed stage tech companies. I love people who think differently, that take risks, that jump off cliffs. And I'm a huge believer in the thought process around dreaming big. And one of the cool things about tools like LinkedIn is they give you a directory of dreams. So you can start to follow the pathways of other people's success. And you can see the steps they took, the communities that they connected into, the content that they're engaged with, the companies that they're associated with. And you can follow the same pathways to develop your professional identity of record online. So I'm going to jump right in to LinkedIn. There are now 1 billion people on the platform. When I joined the company, we were under 100 million. So I got to see 10x growth on that, which is pretty phenomenal. But the vast majority of people who are on it are not on it strategically, and that includes all of you. And there's a reason for that. LinkedIn's UI UX sucks, and somehow through time and OKRs, they've made it suckier. So they've hidden some of the best value. So I'm going to uncover that as we go along. And I'm going to start with unlocking my computer. I'm going to start with just a basic premise. One, this search is ineffective. I'm actually going to take you through a different search within here. Secondly, I'm going to take you into a way to navigate relationships in the most effective manner that you can. So if you jump into my network, which would be your network, and by the way, if you can't see the screen, feel free to move up. Like, it's not going to throw me off. I'll take a second if you want to adjust and move. But if you hit this little button over here, which is Manage My Network, you can go into what used to be the primary navigation on LinkedIn. So if you click on Connections and you hit Search with Filters, this is the more effective way to navigate the platform because you're doing it from a data-driven way. The search that you see up in the left-hand corner is an iterative search. So you type in things and it says, I think this is what you want. Within this search, you can use filtering to get to exactly where you want. So this, to me, is the better way to approach this, right? And one of the things you see right out the gate is it defaults to all your first-level connections, your direct connections. So these are people on LinkedIn that you said, I want to connect with you, they want to connect back kind of thing, right? So you can see I have 12,000 people. I'm an evangelist at heart. I've been speaking in front of audiences for 15 years. And I could have 100,000 connections, but I actually do use a quality lens within this network, right? And there's a reason for that. So when Reid Hoffman was writing the book, The Startup of You, he wanted to see what were the most effective relationships you have to get you to where you need to go. And he found through research that your most important people in your network are not the people you know. Those 12,000 people, it's the people they know. 85% of job opportunities for relational networking happen out of not first-level connections, but second-level connections, a connection of a connection. I'd surmise your business development, your sales, your investment opportunities, your connection to venture, it's not about who you know, it's about who they know that's important, that connection of a connection. And fortunately, LinkedIn affords the opportunity to see those people in practice. So now I can get to all the people at a first or second level that are in my network, where the vast majority of opportunity is, and now I can reach 1.6 million people in my relational network. Now, when Reid was looking at the most important people at a first level who will make an introduction to a second level, he found that there were 4 main affiliations that we all have to build a quality network. Number 1 is friends and family. Now, the challenge with friends and family is a lot of times their network isn't big enough to help you out or aligned with what you do. I was an evangelist in my last role at Techstars. I was a network catalyst before that. I was an evangelist at LinkedIn. My family doesn't even understand my job titles, let alone how to help me out. So I have to go to the second affiliation that most of you share in this room, which is university affiliation. This is student to student, student to alumni, alumni to alumni, student to alumni back to institution. Third is shared work experience. How many of you have worked before? Right? Oh, please don't raise your hand. That was a rhetorical question. Fourth, anything you do to support yourself professionally. So these are events you attend, groups that you're connected to, associations that you're connected to. So those are the 4 main affiliations that create quality at a first level to connect into second level, where the vast majority of opportunity is. So by a show of hands, how many of you are entrepreneurs? Oh, I love you. Just as an aside, and this is not part of the scripted part of this, I adore startups and people who build companies. Kauffman Foundation, some of you may know, does reports about the health of entrepreneurship within the U.S. The last full report, 2021, the new start rate for companies in the U.S. was 0.31%, which means out of 100,000 people, only 310 people started any company. You're a unicorn before you try to be a unicorn. So I am a fan of every one of you and for what you're doing. So I've spent a decade supporting entrepreneurs through Techstars, and I know what your primary needs are. It's funding, talent, customer acquisition, knowledge share, and mentorship. So I'm going to start to navigate this in those eyes to help you get what you need. And let's start with funding. By show of hands, how many of you want to raise money? All right. So I'm going to give you 3 lead lists that are in your network right now that you can use to raise money. And I'm going to start with utilizing the taxonomy, the filtering system on LinkedIn, that you all can use as well. So what I'm about to show you is based on what are called SIC codes, or the old SIC codes. They're NAICS codes. This is government designation by industry utilized for tax purposes globally. So every country in the world uses this. So the reason I'm bringing this up, it's because it's clunky. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. So if I come down to all filters, and I come down to industry, and all of you can do this on the basic version. Everything I'm showing you, you can do on the basic version on LinkedIn. You don't have to add subscription there. If I go into add industry, I can type in venture capital and private equity. So now I'm looking at all the people on my first or second level that are in venture capital or private equity and how I relate to each one of them. So when I hit show results, I now have the 80,000 people who are on my network at a direct or indirect level. And if I built a quality network on the front end, it gives me access to all these people on the back end, right? And I can actually see who they are and how I relate to them. So the relationships I have in common. Miha Baldwin and I just exchanged text earlier this morning, right? So I could ask him to help me out if I wanted to, right? So one of the really interesting things about fundraising is you want to fundraise by what your company does. So some brave soul in the audience, tell me what you're building. Go ahead. All right. So would that fall under the category of health tech? All right. So I can search through all of this filtered set for anybody who's written the word health tech on their profile, which allows me to start to match the taxonomy of the investors, the thesis of the investors that I'm trying to solicit. So if I come here and I type in health tech, which is a very specific word, and it's been written on the profile by the user. They haven't self-selected health tech. They've said, I'm in health tech. When I hit return, I now have the 434 people in my network at a first or second level that have written health tech on their profile. Where are you building your company? All right, Lafayette. How far is that from Indianapolis? All right, so I could use Indy as kind of an example. So if I wanted to see my backyard, everybody within the geography that's in health tech, in venture at a first or second level, that's in Indianapolis, if I type down here, I can bring it down into the market. So I can now look at everybody in Indiana. Actually, we'll do the whole state, right? And I now have Tyler Mantle. Tyler, raise your hand. There, you need to meet Tyler. That is so awesome that just happened. How you doing, bud? All right. Pretty cool, though, right? So I could zero in specifically on somebody who's connected to health tech in venture who's literally in this audience, right? So it shows you how this plays out in practice. Now, go back to building a quality network. Tyler and I have worked together while he's worked at Purdue, while he's worked at Harvard. He has actually had a company through Techstars, the company I used to work for. So we have a shared work experience, right? He's developing a fund right now. I'm connected to him based on that, trying to help him out in any way I can, right? Quality network. If I asked you to introduce me to her, if you were connected to her at a second level, are you likely to do it? Yep. That's an emphatic yes. All right? All right. So pretty cool, right? All right. Now, the problem with what I just showed you is that category of venture capital and private equity. I can work at Google, I can work at Amazon, I can work at LinkedIn, right? I can invest in companies, but I'm in the category of information technology based on that search. So we're going to switch to the second lead list so you can develop out of your own network. So somebody share a name for a type of investor. Angel, right? So I can run a search advertising for every, search for every profile that's associated with the term angel investor. So if I come up here, I type in angel investor. So this is a Boolean search. It's similar to Google. You can do phrases like and or. If you capitalize, it'll either contract or add. I'm putting it in quotes because it's looking for the whole phrase of angel investor that somebody's written on their profile. So I'm identifying people who aren't categorized by that venture capital and private equity, but are associated with angel investor. And here are the 70,000 people connected to the word angel investor. They've written it on their profile, right? And again, I can take this a step deeper. So I can add something like health tech to find all the angel investors that are associated with health tech. If I come over here, I'll type that in, and it's now looking for angel investor and health tech, right? Here are the 404 people associated with that. And again, my primary network are people I know or people they know, right? So if I look at all my second level connections, I'm connected to 328 people either from a direct or indirect level that are in health tech and angel investors. And again, I can see the relationships I have in common with them and utilize those people to connect in. So again, shared work experience. Marianne worked for Techstars for a number of years. She lives in New York City. I started with a new company about 2 months ago. she's about 2 blocks from the company that I'm currently working at. We've already talked about helping each other out, right? So if I ask her to connect me with the person that's at the first level or that I want to connect into, right? If I ask Marion to connect me into Gladys, she's likely to do it, right? But I can start to map out the relationships I need to scale my company. And by the way, that's lead list number 2. I've got a third for you in just a second for investors, right? This should be worth the price of admission right now. I can drop the microphone and leave stage, right? But we're going to take it much further. This is like the elementary level, foundational. I'm going to build on this as we go, right? And I'm going to play on one of the most powerful affiliations out there, which is university affiliation, right? So somebody in this crowd, share a university you went to, any university. I knew it was good. Butler, yeah. I'm not going to pick Butler because when was here doing the rally for Michigan State University, right, the pep rally, and then we went to the game and Butler beat us. Yeah, I'm not picking Butler. All right, so I'm going to pick Purdue. But you can do this for Butler or Indiana or any other university that you went to. When I type in this, I'm going to take you to what are called university pages. So university pages, this is through the Higher Education Initiative. This was a team I was on at LinkedIn. We mapped longitudinal career data. So every user on the platform to a unique identifier for a university, every university in the world. What it allowed us to do is filtering like you've never seen before. Most of you don't even know that this exists, which is a really big fail for product marketing at LinkedIn. But when I come here to Purdue University, this university page, I can go to this little tab that's alumni. So these are all the alumni that went to Purdue by where they live, where they work, what they do, what they're skilled at, how you're connected to them, and year of graduation, right? So the cool thing about this is this category of what they're skilled at. Because this is based on lightweight recommendations, endorsements off people's profiles. So again, we talked about venture capital as a category. Let's look at all the people who went to Purdue that are in venture capital. And we'll use health tech as the example again. So if I come here, I can now see all the people associated with venture capital that went to Purdue, 1,018. Say I was doing a funding run in a hyper-economic zone like San Francisco. I can now look at the 131 people who are in San Francisco that are in health tech that went to Purdue. I can come up here and look at all those people who are attached. So search this set. Have written the word health tech on their profile. And I can see Druvy is the person that I should probably reach out to, right? I just took 1 billion people into the person that you should reach out to based on that affiliation. Now, let's play on university affiliation, because to me, this is one of the most powerful ones out there. If a student from your university were to reach out to you and say, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about who you are and what you're about, by show of hands, how many of you would take that call? And if you don't raise your hand, you're going to hell. And I don't have that power, and I'm Irish Catholic, so I'm going to feel guilty about that for the next 24 hours. But the point is, y'all raise your hand, right? Super interesting thing, you graduate and you're less likely to tap into your alumni network long term. Students get it intuitively, but you start to drop off. But the reality is, that's a warm introduction. And so you can start to navigate this for primary needs, like investment. I could have used, by the way, not just venture capital, but corporate investment. I could have used angel investor, any of those categories to find the people that I'm looking for. All right, let's go to talent. How many of you are building a company in Indianapolis? Show of hands. Any of you, are you looking for technical talent? Engineer? What kind of talent would you hire? Writers? Okay. What do you do? You're a writer? Grant writer. Okay, yeah. Specific like expertise, right? So let's use this to find the people and turn ourselves into headhunters that are in our network that could potentially be hired by me, right? So I'm building a company associated with grant writing. I'm looking for other writers. You're more likely at an early stage level, so when you're just building your company, to hire within your location, your backyard, right? And you're generally going to hire up to your first 20 hires in your network, first or second level connections. It's kind of funny how it dovetails with Reed's research, right? But early, you hire people you know. So we're going to go back to that original search that I was at, and we're going to use grant writing as a perspective. So again, come over here to connections, go to search with filters, and I'm going to look at my first and second level people and anybody who's written the word What would it be? Grant writer? Grant writing. So I have about 66,000 people in my network associated with that, right? But I want to take it down to a smaller location. So let's hire in our backyard. So again, let's look at Indiana as a whole. I could do Indianapolis or Lafayette or whatever. And there are about 1,000 people. All right, so what are you grant writing for? Government grants, educational grants? Nonprofit, so let's use that as a term, right? Is nonprofit one word? It is, right? I'm a former journalist and I can't spell. That's horrible. All right, so that's right? So, by the way, for all of you, try to do a presentation while you're typing on your laptop in front of audience is awesome. So, here are the 424 people, right, associated with grant writing and nonprofit. What's another word that associates with what you do? Is there a particular skill that you would like them to have? Fundraising, all right. So we can take that as a word, and you're starting to use this as taxonomy for the people that you want to hire. So again, you're identifying your people in the network, and I spelled fundraising wrong, so you don't want to hire these 6 people. Let me change that a little bit. That was awesome. But here are the 40 people. Yeah, I feel like I need to reach out to them. Here are the 40 people, right, that are fundraising, that are grant writing, that live in Indianapolis, and I can see how I relate to each one of them. And so, for instance, Lev Mass was a LP in the Techstars Fund. So for a decade, he saw the work I did to support Techstars founders and his bank account, right? If I reach out to Lev, he's likely to connect me to the person there, right? And then I get that person on the phone, hey, we know somebody in common. I have this opportunity. I'm interested in you. You've essentially turned yourself into a headhunter. You can do this over a cup of coffee. You can find the talent in your market that you need to go after, and you're already hiring out a network if you're a small business, right? You might as well identify the people you want to go after. Any of you want to sell to a big company? Name a company you want to sell into. ALS Association. All right. Let's see if that works. Should. So if I come up here, similar to university pages, let's see, that's it, right? All right, similar to university pages, all nonprofits, governments, corporations have these pages, which are their own pages to communicate to people on the platform. The vast majority of them use it for recruitment of talent. So one of the things I see right out the gate, and I'll switch to another company in a second, but they're not actually using this heavily from a recruitment standpoint, right? But if I jump into jobs, I can actually start to see the job descriptions. A little trick for all of you. If I come in here, they're going to talk about ALS in the company in their words, right? If I read that, if I read all the job descriptions, they're telling me how to talk to them, right? They're giving me the way to pitch product and service back at them based on what they're putting here, right? So like I can start to be effective at navigating the right people here. What are you selling into at ALS? Consulting? All right, so who are you targeting? The what? So fundraising, stuff like that. All right. So super cool thing. That alumni tool that I showed you was actually based on talks I used to give in front of universities. Our developers followed me around and built that. They affectionately called it John Hill in a box. That is my baby, all right? So 2 years ago, and by the way, have any of you worked at like Google, Amazon, Twitter, LinkedIn, like any of those companies? So everybody does what are called OKRs. They like work in 3-month sprints, which means if you build something now, 5 years from now, there are all these quarters of people building over that, and what you did generally disappears. So your legacy goes away at those companies. John Hill in a Box started 12 years ago and is still around, right? So that's my baby. Love that it's still around. 2 years ago, they applied it to every company page. So now I can navigate all relationships within company pages by the people who work there, where they live, where they work, what they do, what they're skilled at, and how I'm connected to them. So I can now see every employee that works at ALS Association. By the way, this is super esoteric. I'm usually doing this for like Google, Amazon, like using that as an example, right? This is specific, right? To you and here, right? So you're trying to sell into anybody who's connected to fundraising, right? So I can type this here and do a search for anybody who's written the word fundraising on their profile. And here, 178 people pop up. Now, I might want to look at those. Where'd you go to school? Anderson? Where's Anderson? In Anderson. Anderson is in Anderson. I should have known. So that's awesome. Butler? Okay. Let's do Butler. So let's see if any of those people went to Butler. So nobody with fundraising, nobody there. All right, let's change it up a little bit. Let's look at anybody who's written the word Indiana on their profile. So we'll use geography as a play. And here are the 2 people, actually more. So their search is broken. 9 people that pop up. And I can, again, see the relationships I have in common that have written the word Indiana on it. So all of these people are potential targets for you, right? What I would start with, because we don't work in just one affiliation or connect into one affiliation, is seeing all the people I'm connected to. So here are the 11 people. Do any of those 11 people attach to fundraising, right? And there are 9 of them that do, right? And again, I can see the relationships that I have in between, and half these people I've worked with before that could help me out. Right? Pretty cool. So I'm a big fan of due diligence, trying to get insight and research into people before I pitch them product and service. So I'm going to show you a cool little trick here. If I pop back up here and click on this little employees tab, it's going to take me back into that original search that we played with earlier. So here are the 516 people who have a profile that work at ALS, right? The best people to get insight from are those people that used to work at an organization or a company, right? This is how you do your due diligence. So I can start to look at everybody who used to work at ALS, right? And when I do that search, it's going to be a much broader number, 788. And then I can see people in my network. Do I have anybody at a first or second level? And I have 37, and then I can start to see, do any of those people attach to fundraising? Do they get what I do, right? I now have the 43 people that have written fundraising on their profile that used to work at ALS that are in my network. If I reach out to any of these people, they'll tell me everything. They'll tell me the right people to connect to, the right approach, right? You want the back door from a sales or partnership opportunity? This is how you do it. Pretty cool? All right. So I'm going to take you into some philosophies on how to navigate relationships effectively long term. I'm going to jump back into the home page. And I will take questions any of you have in a little bit. So I'm not going to run this all the way through because I think it's better if we keep this interactive as we go, right? But I'm going to start with who's viewed your profile, right? It's probably the most voyeuristic thing on LinkedIn. I've looked at it like 6 times during this presentation. I really haven't, but could have. But who's viewed your profile showcases interest. So if you pitch product and service to a company, whatever you're building right now, you pitch to somebody, and they look at your profile after you pitch them, what does it tell you? They're interested. They wouldn't look otherwise, right? If you pitch product and service to somebody and somebody else in the company looks at your profile, but they weren't in the meeting, what does that tell you? They're talking about you. Could be really good or spectacularly bad. I have no idea which, right? But they're talking about you, right? Little indicators, little signs that you can use. And by the way, everything I'm doing is more of a framework that you can apply to all social media. There are insights you can use across social media to create opportunity for yourself, right? So don't think about this as just LinkedIn specific. You can do this on every other social to identify information and insights on people to pitch effectively. Pitch back to them in their voice. So the second thing I want to talk about here is the importance of creating a brand through content. And this is a weird thing for me. So I built my first company in 1997, which just like feels forever ago, in Web 1.0. I built a tech company that utilized sports to cut through the marketing clutter. I did that in Nashville, Tennessee. If you think about 1997, if you think about 1997 and you're building a tech company in Nashville, Tennessee, you're probably doing some things wrong, right? So I made every mistake. I had no mentors. I had no connections. There were no investors that I could go to. It's one of the reasons I continue to do this. Actually, doing this walkthrough has no relevancy to the company that I work for now, but I feel like this is my mission to help as many people help themselves in spaces like this and in LinkedIn. And it started in 1997 when I felt super lonely and I didn't have a community around me. And as a startup, as a founder, most of you probably feel lonely sometimes. It is hard what you do. It is super hard. I actually try to counsel people away from starting companies, right? Because anybody who's done it knows it is difficult. But I'll tell you the one thing that was easier then. I didn't have to build a personal brand around myself. I just had to do it for the company. That is no longer the case. You all have to build brands around yourself, expertise, subject matter expertise, thought leadership, right? But there are little tricks I can help you with to help you connect with your communities a little bit more effectively. Start with a simple premise. The average person can only remember 4 things about you. So those people you intersect in a given year, and by the way, we intersect with about 200 people professionally on average annually, right? How many people are here right now? Like 100? So this is like half of the people you will interact with this year, kind of thing, right? So, but they can only remember 4 things about you. The cool thing about that is if you only talk about 4 subjects, they generally are going to remember those 4 subjects. So as you're building out a content plan of what to post on things like LinkedIn, hit those areas, what you talk about. So you'll hear me talk about entrepreneurship. You'll hear me talk about LinkedIn, Techstars. You'll hear me talk about Michigan State University. That's about it. Those are the things that I cover when I'm posting. Now, the cool thing about where LinkedIn is going is they're making it easier to build a brand professionally. So if I go down here, you'll see that they're unleashing a bunch of creator tools. So I can do video, I can do audio, podcasts, stuff like that. They're tracking my effectiveness. And they're telling me, hey, you're doing well or you're not doing well in the content that you're developing, right? And so I can actually track, am I reaching people as I go? And if I jump on this, so like I just posted this 2 days ago saying, hey, I'm looking for more speaking gigs out there, allowing my community to connect with me and help me out. I've been speaking to you for 33 minutes right now. Who do you think I normally talk to? Who do I normally talk to? Entrepreneurs, right? So who should be reading my content? I want to see that I'm brand aligned, right? So I can come down here and look to see if I'm brand aligned. If I hit View Analytics, on the back end, LinkedIn is showing how effective my content is. So if I swing down here, I can look at job titles. And I can see the people I'm reaching are co-founders and founders. I'm brand aligned. Now, the beautiful thing about this is I can A/B test content. So I can post 2 different things on 2 different days, and I'll see this reaches more founders than this does, and I can lean into that. So it's teaching me how to be a better communicator on this platform. A struggle that a lot of you have is you're not writers. I am super fortunate because I graduated with a journalism degree. I was an editor for a national sports magazine in Nashville when I jumped and built that company. So I've written at a very high level before, which makes me comfortable in writing in environments like this. So I'm going to give you a simple philosophy or framework that you can use to develop content in your own eyes. It's called COPE, C-O-P-E. It's create once, publish everywhere. So take the quintessential germ of what you want to get, like break it down into the smallest nugget you can of what you're trying to promote to people, and then shift that a little bit in everywhere you put it. So on LinkedIn, it's where business takes place. It's business application. If you're doing X, Threads, Instagram, whatever, right, it's more of a water cooler, steady stream of information you're interested in right now. So you can right size for that. Facebook's like the bar, right? So sometimes good conversations, some you don't want to be relevant, right? So like you can shift based on what you're doing, but you don't have to recreate the wheel on content again and again and again. And again, tools like this will make you better at communication. So the last thing I want to talk about is watering your network. I have a big network. So you saw I have about 12,000 people. I have to create systems to communicate and connect with people long term. So the number one thing I do every morning is take 20 minutes and try to respond to cues within my network. So I'll see people who've changed jobs. I'll see people who have moved from one location to another. And I'll see people who are celebrating something professionally. So if they're celebrating something professionally, I'll write an email to them, not just hit the like button or comment on a post. So I'll cut through the clutter. If I see somebody's moved from one location to another, I'll introduce them to people I know in the location that they're going. If I see somebody's moved to a company, I know other people in the company, I'll introduce them to the people I know there. I do that 20 times a day. I try to take 20 actions every day, 1 a minute. 20 times a day. I'll do it on a plane when I'm flying back to Boston tonight. I do that 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 100 times. In the course of a year, I'm celebrating people's professional accomplishments a little more than 5,000 times. If I reach out to any of those people to help me out, do you think they're more likely to do it? Yes, because I show that I care about them, right? So it's a way to keep yourself connected to your audience so that they're there when you need it. So again, I go back to those principles I talked about, and one more time, show of hands, who are the entrepreneurs? All right, everybody else give them a round of applause. Hey, you are the amazing people. Like Reid Hoffman has my favorite quote about entrepreneurship. It's like jumping off the cliff and trying to build a plane before it hits the ground, right? That probably feels super similar to all of you, or most of you who are the entrepreneurs. I will tell you this. I've been around ecosystems and communities all over the world. I've spoken in 40 countries. I've worked with governments in other countries to help support entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial communities. There are people out there that will extend the runway or bring the ground up. Look for those people. And they are in Indianapolis, and I have seen them. They are in Indiana. They are at the universities. I've seen them here, right? So you have access to those people. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You don't know everything, right? And the sooner you realize how little you know, the more you're going to get the help you need to grow, right? It'll open up that door to move forward, right? But entrepreneurs are amazing. You're my favorite people. I will continue to do this until I don't want to do it anymore, but you make it so that I can't not do it, right? You're amazing human beings, right? Continue to have that uncanny ability to suspend disbelief and do something that nobody else in the world has done or do it better. Continue to dream big, right? And that's a personal point for me to drive to all of you. Keep pushing it. There are people cheering you on, even if you don't know there are people cheering you on, all right? So I'll end there. I'm about 5-6 minutes early, and I don't want to overwhelm you. Like what I just gave you on that LinkedIn walkthrough, you've never seen a product walkthrough like that before. Correct? How many of you, show of hands, knew all those tools existed? Yeah, a handful. How many of you have seen me speak before? Yeah. So, again, it's what you put into this that will pay out in the long run. Most important is just be good to each other. All of what we do is hard, including getting up on stage and speaking in front of a bunch of people repetitively. Like I chose the profession that most people say they would rather not do. They'd rather die than speak publicly, right? So I get how hard all of this is. I will take any questions you have. I'm going to wrap on this side of it. Before I do, though, I just want to share the company that I'm working at now. How many of you are in technology? How many of you are not in technology? So I worked at Techstars for 10 years. We invested in early seed stage tech companies. We invested in 4,300 companies. 430 of those companies exited. 6 went public. We invested in those companies when there were 1, 2, 3 people, right? Really early in the pipeline. And I was always fascinated with how incredible those companies were, but pretty much every one of them were tied to somebody who had acumen in technology. So you had to have a technologist, somebody who understood engineering, development, whatever, to build your dream in that space. The company that I'm working at now, WHOP.com, we are using no-code solutions to allow everybody to build a digital business. We've generated almost $500 million for our creators on our platform so far. We have about 5,000 creators, so people who have built companies, which is already more than the 10 years that I worked at Techstars of companies we invested in. And we had about 4.5 million people come into our marketplace last month. So if we can help you build a business, do it. One of the things that we're creating is usernames. So if you have a specific username on social right now, you probably want to claim your real estate here. Where LinkedIn is the professional identity of record that helps you find a job, we believe that WAP is the professional identity of record that is the job. It's future work play, and it's an approach for sustainable income or secondary income for every one of you. It's end-to-end, so it does payment solutions on the back end, customer service, handle just about everything. So all of you can create a company in about 10 minutes. So this is a shift. It was the reason I jumped a company that I stayed for 10 years. It feels like LinkedIn part 2 for me, and I was early at LinkedIn. So a lot of pattern matching there. Anyway, I'll take any questions. I've got 5 minutes. Go from there, or I'll answer afterwards as well. Go ahead. Yeah. So what's my feeling about connecting with people you don't know? You all sat through 40 minutes of me talking. What do you think I believe? Don't do it. Yeah. So it's funny because social media has conditioned to people to fear about not connecting with people who reach out. If I took this into real life, like our offices are in Brooklyn. If I were wandering around Brooklyn and somebody ran up to me and say, "Hey, I want to know you and everybody you know," I'd like run away, right? But on LinkedIn, you like think about it, right? Don't worry about it. Like I give you full permission to like just ignore them. You don't have to add people you don't know. In fact, I'm like a fan of not being an open networker. Go ahead. Yeah, so he's asking if I'm using Sales Navigator Premium. So as a former LinkedIn employee, we get premium for life. But everything I showed you, every walkthrough, you can follow exactly like I did on the basic level. So you don't need to upgrade your subscription. Am I being recorded at all right now? Wait. Am I? Say no. All right. So I got a little trick for you. If you hit that your face up there, you can go into a little help where you can connect to customer service. Reach out to them and say, "Hey, I'd love to get 6 months free to test out if I want to buy a Navigator or not," right? So right now they're either doing 3 months or 6 months. They're great people from Omaha, Nebraska in the US answering for customer service, right? And then at the end of that 3 months or 6 months, write them again and say, "Hey, I'm still not sure if I want it." And they'll upgrade you for another 3 to 6 months. So I just gave you all free LinkedIn Premium for a minimum of 6 months, potentially a year. So there are little tricks you can do in the system. And by the way, if you don't get it on the first one, just try somebody else because it doesn't refresh in the queue. So they have no idea that you're paying them repetitively. That's inside baseball. So. All right, what's your advice for finding a technical co-founder? So I just showed you a company that I'm about to work at that you don't have to do that at all, which is this one. So you don't need a technical co-founder. But if you were looking at it, remember when we went for grant writing in Indianapolis and we went down to first and second level in our network? Start to talk to people who are doing what you want. So find some of the people who are in technology building something at another company, not to recruit them, but who do you think they know? Other people who are in startups building technology, right? So you're using them to connect into the hidden job market or founder market in this instance. What else we got? Go for it. Yeah. So when you're making a connection, how do you do a good job of remembering people? How many of you are connected with somebody since you've been at Rally? All right. So one of the little tricks I do is either in response or if I ask somebody to connect with me, I'll write down who they are, where we met, what we talked about in my response back to them. Later, you can search messages. So it essentially acts as a quasi like insight into the people that are in your network, right? And I've been doing that for 15 years. So like I can always go back and pinpoint exactly where we met, what we talked about, who we're engaged with, right? They used to have notes on profiles, and I wish they wouldn't have got rid of it. And I used to like literally take detailed notes, and you could download them, but they mothballed that about 7 or 8 years ago. So unfortunately, go for it. Yeah. Yep. So LinkedIn Live. So one of the things for SEO for all of you, a couple different things. Individual profile for SEO. The more companies that you connect to, influencers you connect to within the platform, the further you come up in search like Google, because Google will spider those as all unique URLs attached to your profile. So give you, for instance, I'm John Hill. That is like the most common name ever, right? It's like John Doe, John Smith, right? I come up 7th in Google search for just the name John Hill without quotes, right, on my LinkedIn profile because I've maximized on SEO. So if I'm doing something like LinkedIn Live, which is what he asked, like how do you maximize that? Don't do external links. Do links of the LinkedIn Live to the communities and groups you're connected to within LinkedIn, and it'll maximize the search, and you'll trick the algorithm internally to pull more people into that content that align with that because they want to keep things closed within LinkedIn. My guess is you're promoting something outside but using LinkedIn as a piggyback, right? So what I'm saying is like separate those two things and you'll be cool. Go for it. Oh, wow. That's an existential question. So his question was, at what point in my career should I go for entrepreneurship? Um, so I am a big fan of the idea that perfection gets in the way of progress. Just do it. All right. I am at time. The little red light is flashing. You're amazing. Thank you for the connection and the talk. Hopefully, I gave you something that you can utilize. My whole goal here is to be inspirational and tactical at the same time. All of you should be able to apply what I showed as you walk out of here, right? And that makes me feel good because you actually utilize something from a presentation outside of inspiration. It's so awesome to be able to come to places like this. Connect with as many people as you can here. Beautiful thing about events like this, it's a bunch of atoms running around and you create little explosions. And I've been doing that over the last 24 hours with different people. I wish you all the luck and thank you for your time and attention as a speaker. It's amazing. So appreciate it.